I was getting ready to write a state of the channel, lamenting the absence of baseball shows in 2021 and about how that trend would likely continue over 2022. And not only did I suspect that there were no baseball shows in the upcoming year, but there was also no show that I was interested in watching at all in the winter season. And then, by some miracle, Tribe 9 addressed both of those concerns. Okay, it wasn't a miracle, I just missed it when looking at the seasonal posters, but you can hardly blame me for not noticing it. I mean, look at this thing. I actually realized my mistake when I was attending to the only effective way I've discovered in trying to figure out what shows to watch, and that's just letting Twitter tell me what's good and what's bad. And I don't think anyone on Twitter has told me that Tribe 9 is good, at least not yet, but it was on Twitter that I learned that Tribe 9 is baseball, or at least something that resembles baseball. It also marks the first new baseball anime since the summer of 2020, and for that reason alone, I think it's something to celebrate. Tribe 9 sets us up in a futuristic dystopian Japan, where hordes of disgruntled youth have organized into street gangs that turn to violence to solve conflicts. The plot is Akira's, and the show does not hide how much it steals from Akira, with the city calling itself Neo-Tokyo and using a lot of the same dark, gritty cityscapes that Akira used. There's even a shot of a satellite whose function is unclear that looks exactly like the orbital laser from the end of Akira. But after that, that's kind of where the similarities end. Instead of a toothless government trying to impose control over increasingly powerful gangs like in Akira, the government in this version of Neo-Tokyo decides that these street gangs must solve their conflicts through a game called Extreme Baseball, and everyone just kind of goes along with it. The characters call it Extreme Baseball instead of Extreme Yakyu, even in Japanese, which I find a little awkward, but it is very much its own game. Extreme Baseball is kind of like a mix between Megalobox's machine-infused gameplay and a street racing video game, maybe like Gran Turismo, but don't quote me, I don't know video games all that well. And this is all baseball, at least it kind of looks like baseball, except instead of being played on a field, it's played on the streets of Neo-Tokyo in the middle of the night. This is such a silly concept that if this had nothing to do with baseball and took itself seriously at all, I don't think I would give even 10 minutes of my attention to this show. Thankfully, it doesn't take itself too seriously, which is a really good thing because in the first few minutes of this episode, there isn't a lot to latch onto. The intro for our main characters finds our timid blonde Haru cornered by thugs, our red-headed hotshot Taiga trying and failing to save the day, and our overpowered hero Shun introducing himself by throwing a baseball at the street thugs trying to bully Haru. The fight itself is a bit confusing and weirdly framed, and the show insists on putting this fishing motif onto Taiga, which doesn't have anything to do with baseball. But Shun dispatches with the thugs all together and brings everyone back to the tribe's home base, which is like a bar or a batting center or something. It is there we meet Saori, who is like the matroness of the bar, and it is there we learn that she and Shun and a few other of the bar's patrons are a part of Minato tribe's top-ranked extreme baseball team. Representatives from a rival tribe enter the bar and challenge the Minato tribe to a game of extreme baseball. And though there's only like 3 experienced players there and 5 people willing to play at all, they accept the challenge. It's at this point in the story that most sports shows would have the main character realize that there aren't enough people on their team to compete, and so they would have to go and recruit the rest of the people to fill out their team. This show dispenses with that nonsense by having our characters realize that, wait, there's only 5, and then for a set of quadruplets to just manifest out of thin air. It gives the Minato tribe 9 players and doesn't have any of the recruiting scene, and I don't know, I found that funny anyway. So we pull up at our field, which again isn't really a field, but an empty street in the middle of the night. And our teams pull up with trucks, which turn into dugouts. And our heroes pull out their equipment, which at this point is just a metallic wristband that turns into a glove/communication device/navigation device that allows people to tell where the ball is flying when it inevitably goes kilometers in one direction. Our catcher Saori actually uses the navigation bit to tell her fielders where to go, which I think is a pretty cool part of the show. Oh yeah, Saori is our catcher, by the way, and it's been a good last couple of years for girl catchers in anime. The mechanics of the baseball itself are bombastic and ridiculous, but there are a few jokes that ground the game into reality. One of them is a literal robot umpire that's just a giant walking catcher's mask, and it's easily the cutest thing in the show. Another joke I really enjoyed was our second place hitter Haru unintentionally laying down a bunt to advance Taiga from first base to second base, which is the most Japanese thing imaginable. And when our top hitter Shun comes to the plate, our pitcher decides to activate his gear to turn into a literal railgun. And it doesn't matter, because when Shun takes his swing, it not only destroys the pitcher's gear, but also takes off the top of this show's analog of the Tokyo Tower. And I think that somehow ends the game in the bottom of the first inning, or so it appears. I'm not sure of the rules of this game quite yet. And then our heroes celebrate, Haru learns to stick up for himself, and they all decide that they want to play extreme baseball. Anyway, I'm not sold that Tribe 9 is going to be good, but the first episode was a lot more fun than I expected it to be. It reminds me of this old special called Azusa Will Help, in how it addresses how baseball might look in the future, and also how it doesn't take itself seriously, like, at all. The colors in the electric action sequences also remind me a lot of Skate the Infinity, though I will admit that this show does not look nearly as pretty as Skate does. Tribe 9 looks to be a multimedia project with a web cartoon and a smartphone game attached to the anime. I don't know how to access either of those things, nor do I have much interest in accessing them. But I imagine the same production team is splitting their attention amongst those three projects, and I don't actually know how much of it is going to the show itself. But after looking at the poster and the description and my own personal taste in shows, I went into the first episode expecting to kinda hate it. But I'm actually looking forward to watching the second episode, and maybe even looking forward to talking about the second episode. I guess that makes this a video series, and so I'll see y'all next week.